The story of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, begins right after the events of the film Spider-Man: No Way Home. As we saw in No Way Home, the opening of the multiverse reveals to the entire universe that Peter Parker is the real Spider-Man. Because of this, enemies from the multiverse start coming one by one to eliminate Peter Parker. If enemies keep coming like this, many problems could arise in the days ahead. Therefore, Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange, and through a spell, makes everyone in the world completely forget him and treat him like a total stranger. As a result, Peter's girlfriend MJ, his best friend Ned, and no one else can recognize Peter Parker at all. This means no one knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Furthermore, Peter's beloved Aunt May passed away in the previous chapter, so Peter Parker is now completely alone. Despite being alone, he has set up everything in his old home, where he has appointed EEV as his new AI assistant. While Peter is adjusting his suit, he notices a small box containing a letter addressed to MJ. It is the exact same letter we saw at the very end of No Way Home. In that letter, Peter wrote to MJ that the real Peter Parker is Spider-Man. However, he never gathered the courage to give that letter to MJ. Now, Peter is completely dependent on Ned's reels, which he constantly watches just to get a brief glimpse of MJ. Whenever a danger signal pops up on his mobile phone, Peter immediately rushes out to fight. Over the past 6 months, Peter has captured criminals like Scorpion, Tarantula, and Tombstone one by one, maintaining the trust of New York's citizens. Everyone is thrilled with the work of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. In the meantime, Peter also develops a good friendship with Detective Diolope of the New York Police Department. Peter goes about his routine, traveling around to do his work, laying flowers at Aunt May's grave every day, catching criminals, and sitting in front of his computer to code new features into his suit. One day, while Peter is talking to Detective Diolope on the phone, an alert comes in about a Department of Damage Control armor suit being hacked and speeding recklessly through the streets of New York City. As soon as he finds out, Peter transforms into Spider-Man and goes to stop the armor. First, he disables all of the armor's weapons. However, stopping the armor is not so easy. When several ordinary citizens cross its path, Spider-Man rescues them and tries to stop the armor, but fails to halt it. Meanwhile, Frank, whom we know as the Punisher, also arrives in his car to stop the armor. He starts shooting at the armor, but Spider-Man doesn't like this because there are many people on the street and stray bullets could hit them. Therefore, Spider-Man tries to stop Frank first, leading to another fight between the two. During this fight, Spider-Man completely damages Frank's car and sticks a web over Frank's mouth before rushing off to stop the armor. Suddenly, Detective Diolope informs Spider-Man that the armor is heading toward the damage control prison, where Scorpion and other superpowered criminals are being held. Hearing this, Spider-Man says, "I arrested Scorpion once, and I'll do it again." Meanwhile, Spider-Man successfully manages to stop the armor, but as the armor's hatch opens, he sees an elderly woman inside and is momentarily shocked, having never expected to find an elderly person inside the armor. The elderly woman greets Spider-Man casually with a "hi hello," while the surrounding damage control forces seem to be acting as though someone is controlling them. The elderly woman then snaps back to normal and asks Spider-Man where she is, realizing that someone had been controlling her actions all this time. Nearby, a soldier loses control and begins marching forward. Spider-Man cannot make sense of any of this. Meanwhile, Scorpion is being airlifted to another location. The soldier guiding the pilot on where to take Scorpion also loses control and gives a completely different command, leaving the pilot stunned. However, following the new command, the pilot flies away with Scorpion. Meanwhile, Spider-Man lands on a rooftop just as a soldier attempts to commit suicide, and Spider-Man immediately stops him. Soon after, the soldier who was controlling the others tries to infiltrate Spider-Man's mind. This triggers memories of the days Peter spent with Aunt May, but he manages to fight off the mind control and break free. However, he has no idea what is happening to him. The soldier then taunts him, asking how he plans to stop the bomb hidden inside the armor if he is too busy fighting mind control, noting that the armor will explode in the blink of an eye. The soldier suddenly regains control of himself, but having no memory of what just happened, he tells Spider-Man and everyone else that he did nothing wrong. Detective Diolope informs Spider-Man that someone helped Scorpion escape, and adds that the elderly person found inside the armor has no criminal record and is an ordinary citizen. Realizing something is deeply wrong, Spider-Man asks Diolope to gather all information on Scorpion and sets out to investigate. While tracking down leads, Spider-Man visits the underwater pool office of New York Avenger Black Widow, Yelena. Yelena is the sister of Natasha Romanoff. To reach Yelena's underwater office, Peter has to dive in without changing out of his suit, though he refuses to take off his mask to protect his identity. Peter tells Yelena that someone manipulated minds at the damage control prison and tried to do the same to him, though they failed. Yelena replies that the exact same thing happened to her in the Red Room, a program also known as the Black Widow program. When Peter asks why the damage control prison was attacked, Yelena reveals that the damage control servers have been hacked 4 times in recent days. She suggests that a secret weapon program called Vimax inside the damage control office might be the reason for the attack, though she admits she has no idea what Vimax actually is. Hearing this, Peter decides to visit the damage control office to figure things out. He goes to see the director of the Department of Damage Control, Mez Care. However, arriving at the head office lands Spider-Man in big trouble. They demand he remove his mask for identification. Refusing to remove his mask, Spider-Man is held at gunpoint. At that moment, Director Mesger arrives and escorts Spider-Man to her office. Along the way, Spider-Man spots the Hand team in the head office. The Hand team consists of ninja warriors whom Spider-Man had previously captured during their criminal activities. Mesger tells Spider-Man that they now work for her. Inside the office, Spider-Man watches as special weapons designed to capture superhumans are being manufactured. Once inside Mesger's room, Spider-Man tells her that someone is manipulating minds. They tried to control his mind too, but failed, and whoever is behind this must have a specific motive. Hearing this, Mescrade assigns Spider-Man the task of tracking down the mind controller. Mid-conversation, Spider-Man asks what Vimax actually is and if she knows anything about it. Mezcare denies knowing anything and asks where Spider-Man heard about Vimax. Peter replies that superheroes come across a lot of information that cannot be shared. Leaving the office, Spider-Man updates Detective Diolope about Vimax, but neither of them can find any detailed information on it. Diolope urges Peter to find Scorpion first, hoping his capture might yield answers. While talking to Diolope, Peter spots Ned. Overjoyed to see Ned after so long, Peter follows him to his house. Upon arriving at Ned's place, Peter discovers a crime board set up specifically to track down Spider-Man. Ned confronts Peter and explains that he isn't hunting Spider-Man to hurt him, but simply wants to know who he is. Ned reveals he has built a tracker app named Spidey to find him, and shows photos of 2 suspects, causing Peter to quietly smile. Suddenly, MJ walks into the room. Seeing MJ leaves Peter momentarily frozen, but neither MJ nor Ned recognizes him at all. When MJ asks who he is, Peter introduces himself as Maynard. He explains that since Ned recently bought a new house and threw a party, he came over as a neighbor. Right after this, a heartbreaking moment stops Peter in his tracks. Another guy at the party kisses MJ. Seeing this breaks Peter's heart, and he quickly rushes outside, recalling the days he spent with MJ. He remembers telling MJ in his own voice that she wouldn't be able to recognize him and how he tracked her down. MJ had once asked him, "When are you going to come find me?" Peter had come to find her, but by then, she belonged to someone else. He returns home deeply saddened by these thoughts. Soon after, Peter notices the veins in his hands swelling, realizing something is happening to his organic webbing. In the blink of an eye, he blacks out. In his unconscious state, he hallucinates Aunt May, realizing that the mind controller has finally managed to successfully manipulate his mind, using Aunt May's image to taunt him about an impending danger. Peter regains consciousness to find himself trapped in his own web between 2 buildings, wearing nothing but shorts. When he tries to use his powers, they malfunction, causing him to fall. He picks himself up and makes his way home through a window, wearing women's skirts along the way, including an incident inside an elevator. Back in his room, he finds his entire space covered in his own webs, which he realizes he spun himself while under the mind control. As soon as he enters, his AI assistant EEV announces that he has 107 new messages. Peter turns on his computer, which warns him that his spider DNA hormones are mutating, causing his organic web powers to surge uncontrollably. The computer suggests that this sudden mutation might be triggered by a life of extreme loneliness. Hearing this, Peter insists he is completely fine. However, when he picks up his mechanical web shooter, it instantly shatters in his hands. His gamma powers are involuntarily leaking out, rendering mechanical web shooters useless. Suddenly, Peter hears loud, unearthly noises he has never experienced before. Stunned, he attempts to fire his organic webs, but they fail to work. When he steps outside, EEV informs him that Scorpion has attacked a damage control facility. Hearing this, Peter rushes out in an erratic state to stop Scorpion. At the facility, Scorpion is interrogating guards about the location of Vimax. Spider-Man crashes onto a car nearby in his distressed state and confronts Scorpion, asking how many times he has to keep fighting him. To his shock, Scorpion replies that he is not actually Scorpion, meaning Scorpion is also under someone's mind control. A fierce battle begins between the two. As the fight progresses, the gamma energy inside Peter surges, turning his eyes completely black. Scorpion is easily overpowered. Losing control of himself, Spider-Man violently pummels Scorpion and damages a police car in the process. When Scorpion returns to normal, he asks Peter why he attacked him, making Peter realize that Scorpion had been mind-controlled the whole time. Overcome with guilt upon realizing he wrecked a police car while in his gamma-fueled state, Diolodi tries to comfort him, explaining that the mind controller is to blame. However, feeling physically and mentally weak, Peter listens as Diolodi warns him, "Learn to control yourself first. Today you almost killed a cop. Fix yourself." Peter now understands that whenever he fails to control his anger, his gamma powers take over, much like Dr. Bruce Banner and the Hulk. To find a solution, Peter visits Dr. Banner, who now works as a university lecturer. After class, Peter asks Banner how he keeps his powers under control and how his inhibitory device works. Banner is surprised by the sudden, intense questioning from a stranger. Because Banner no longer recognizes Peter Parker, Peter gives a fake name and explains that he wants to preserve his good powers while keeping the bad ones in check. Understanding the dilemma, Banner discusses the inhibitor device, leading Peter to realize that an inhibitor can be used to control anyone with superpowers. Concluding the conversation, Banner advises Peter that the powers he has been given might ultimately be a gift, urging him to learn to control them himself. Dr. Banner's parting words inspire Peter. Back in his room, Peter builds an inhibitor prototype, straps it around his neck, and tests it. It fails instantly, triggering another burst of organic webbing that breaks the prototype and sends him crashing to the floor. Outside on the street, a bystander tells Peter that trying to stop the monster he is hunting is completely useless because no one can ever understand or defeat this power. Realizing that this person's mind is being controlled by the villain, Peter demands to know who they are. Through the possessed bystander, the mind controller exposes Peter's true identity, leaving Peter in utter shock. He had used magic to erase everyone's memories so no ordinary human could ever recognize him, yet this mind controller has figured it out. Worse yet, the mind controller is currently inside Peter's home, casually listing off the items in his room, even pointing out which coffee cup holds the letter written for MJ. Panicking, Peter tells his AI assistant to pull up the security camera footage. On the monitor, Peter spots the mind controller inside his house, though their face is hidden beneath a hoodie. The villain taunts him, "You really like MJ, don't you? Watch how I kill MJ in just a moment." Determined to save MJ, Peter leaps into action. The mind controller uses a chain of mental manipulations to position a helicopter pilot. Spider-Man webs the helicopter and steers it straight toward MJ's apartment. Shocked to see Spider-Man crashing into her room, MJ panics. Spider-Man immediately asks where Ned is, and MJ replies that he is out. Spider-Man tells her she is in grave danger and must leave with him immediately, but MJ is initially skeptical, suspecting he might be a fake Spider-Man. Peter, as Spider-Man, reassures her that she will be safe, embraces her, and flies her away to a secure location. After landing safely, MJ demands to know who is hunting her and why. Spider-Man replies that he doesn't know the full story. MJ then says, "This danger is coming because of you. For some reason, I feel like I have a connection to you. You've saved me not once, but 4 times. No one saves someone that many times for no reason. Are you a friend or someone else?" Hearing this, Spider-Man falls silent. Regaining his composure, he lies that they have no connection and vows to keep everyone safe. However, MJ senses that he might be someone close to her and reaches out to touch him, pulling down his mask just enough to reveal his nose. Spider-Man doesn't stop her. Recognizing something familiar in his face, MJ kisses him. After kissing him for a long moment, MJ pulls the mask all the way down and gasps, "Peter!" Realizing she has remembered him, Peter pulls her into a tight, emotional hug and says, "I missed you so much, I never thought you'd remember me." MJ hugs him back fiercely, telling him not to let go. Suddenly, Peter's heart drops. He realizes that the mind controller has been manipulating MJ's mind the entire time. Through MJ's voice, the mind controller mocks Peter's love for her, saying, "You really love MJ, don't you? And you should, she's smart." but she'll never remember you after this. She's only going to ignore you. Your love is useless." Furious, Peter yells that the villain is a monster, asking if they have any idea how painful it is to love someone deeply and have no one understand the agony. The mind controller continues to mock him mercilessly. The villain drags MJ to the edge of a building and taunts, "Let's see if you can save your love from the jaws of death." Enraged, Peter loses his temper, triggering his gamma powers as his eyes turn completely black. The mind controller sneers, "Looking at your condition, you'll forget who you are soon enough. You really should have left that letter behind." This pushes Peter over the edge. Blind with anger, he grabs MJ by the throat, unwittingly manipulated by the villain, while yelling at the entity to get out of her. Instead, the mind controller forces MJ backward, pushing her off the ledge of the building. Acting on pure instinct, Spider-Man shoots a web to catch her, a moment echoing the heartbreaking scene from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where Peter failed to save Gwen Stacy. This time, however, Spider-Man catches MJ and pulls her safely into his arms before she hits the ground. After saving MJ, the mind controller pulls up in a car and sends the driver toward Peter. Recognizing that the driver was sent by the villain, Peter begs him to leave MJ alone. The mind controller speaks through the driver, agreeing to back off for now, but warns Peter not to follow them. As the car drives away, the villain drops the letter Peter wrote for MJ, and Peter finally manages to trace the mind controller's signal using his AI assistant. Choosing to prioritize MJ over chasing the villain, Peter brings her to safety and helps her recover. MJ regains consciousness and immediately tries to comfort Spider-Man, promising to keep him safe and take him to a safe house. Unbeknownst to them, MJ accidentally triggers traps inside the safe house. Spider-Man rescues her from each one, realizing too late that this safe house belongs to Frank Castle, the Punisher. Spider-Man tells Frank that this is the safest place for MJ and asks him to watch her for a few days. Frank refuses, asking why he should babysit. Spider-Man reminds Frank of the time he saved his life when Frank was in danger on an island. After a long argument, Frank finally agrees to shelter MJ. Spider-Man then reveals to them that the person behind the mind-controlled attacks on the damage-controlled prison is a young mutant girl named Jean Grey, explaining that mutants possess superhuman abilities akin to the X-Men. Spider-Man reveals he has placed face cams at likely target locations to catch Jean Grey when she strikes. Frank scoffs, telling Peter to go get himself killed while he keeps Peter's girlfriend for himself. Spider-Man replies that he won't die as long as his inhibitor works. Peter sets to work trying to fix his inhibitor. Meanwhile, MJ asks if she can make a quick phone call to let someone know she's safe. When Spider-Man asks if she's calling a boyfriend, MJ replies, "No, my roommate, Ned." Spider-Man forbids her from calling Ned, knowing she really wants to call her boyfriend. MJ then asks if there is a Mrs. Spider-Man. Spider-Man says no, but admits he cares deeply for someone and left her behind for her own safety. MJ remarks that doing something like that must be incredibly difficult. Mid-conversation, the inhibitor malfunctions again, and MJ offers to take a look at it. Noticing MJ's willingness to help, Peter puts his mask back on. Since MJ is a biochemical engineer, she offers expert advice that successfully gets the inhibitor working properly. Thrilled, Spider-Man thanks her. MJ notes that the inhibitor looks like it's built for monsters, adding, "You're no monster, Spider-Man." Peter responds that given everything happening to him lately, he feels like he's turning into one. MJ softly replies that the man behind the mask has a truly gentle soul and is slowly changing for the better. Her words leave a deep impression on Peter. He falls asleep holding the letter he wrote for her. The next morning, Frank brings Spider-Man a cup of coffee. Since Spider-Man is still wearing his mask, Frank mocks him, joking that a real Spider-Man wouldn't wear a mask just to drink coffee. Spider-Man retorts that he won't take off his mask for anyone. He then reveals that he has built a second inhibitor, planning to attach it to Jean Grey to neutralize her powers. Frank questions his motives, asking if he refuses to take off his mask even in front of the girl whose life he is risking everything to save. When Spider-Man insists she means nothing to him and is completely alone, just like him, Frank argues that nobody chooses to be alone, and it's not as easy as he makes it sound. Suddenly, an alert flashes on Spider-Man's computer. Jean Grey is attacking the damage control headquarters, and the feed is visible through the face cams. Spider-Man immediately gears up to stop her. Before leaving, Spider-Man asks MJ if she'll be okay, and Frank assures him he'll keep her safe. Once Spider-Man leaves, MJ scolds Frank for letting him go into danger alone, comparing it to the time Frank needed help on the island. Her words prick Frank's conscience, and he heads out after Peter. At the damage control headquarters, Jean Grey is ransacking the facility looking for Vimax. Director Mez Care watches from a hidden room on a monitor and asks Jean what she wants. Jean replies that Mez Care knows very well what she wants. Spider-Man arrives to find the place in ruins. He calls out Jean's name, and she remarks that he managed to learn her name, but warns him that she told him not to follow her, and now MJ is in danger because of it. Spider-Man insists she cannot hurt MJ and reaches for the inhibitor, but is suddenly paralyzed with fear. Dr. Banner, transformed into the Hulk and mind-controlled by Jean, steps out, having caused the massive destruction in the building. The Hulk attacks Spider-Man, who tries desperately to reason with him while dodging blows. Spider-Man attempts to slap the inhibitor onto the Hulk's neck but fails. Suddenly, Frank arrives and opens fire on the Hulk with heavy artillery. Shocked, Spider-Man yells at Frank, asking why he left MJ to come here. Frank explains that MJ sent him to make sure Peter didn't die. Realizing Jean is controlling the Hulk, Spider-Man tells Frank to stop shooting, explaining that he built two inhibitors, one for the Hulk and one for Jean. As Frank tries to push past toward Jean, the Hulk momentarily breaks free of the mind control in a side room and reverts back to Dr. Banner. However, lacking an inhibitor, Banner instantly transforms back into the Hulk, specifically a nostalgic yet enraged iteration of the Beast. Seeing this, Spider-Man sighs that it's been a long time since he's seen this form. The Hulk charges at Spider-Man, launching a brutal assault. Amidst the chaos, Frank sets a time bomb with a 2-minute countdown. Taking heavy blows, Spider-Man looks the Hulk in the eyes and says, "I'm Peter Parker, I'm your friend." Hearing those words, the Hulk stops his attack, looks into Spider-Man's eyes, and leaps out of the building. Meanwhile, Jean uses Frank to capture Mez Care and demands to know where Vimix is, revealing that Vimix is not a program, but a person. Spider-Man rushes in and successfully slaps the inhibitor onto the back of Jean's neck. In an instant, Jean loses her powers, and Frank breaks free from her control. Mez Care immediately shoots Jean with a sedative dart, causing her to lose consciousness. As she passes out, Jean whispers a single name, Sarah. With Jean incapacitated, Dr. Banner regains control and is sent to a hospital for medical evaluation. Grateful for her life, Mez Care thanks Spider-Man. Peter asks if she knows someone named Sarah, mentioning Jean's dying whisper. Mez Care claims that Sarah was a colleague who died during an operation and suggests that Jean used mind control to conjure up Sarah's name. Determined to speak with Jean once she recovers, Peter is told by Mez Care that Jean will be sent to an isolated island facility for treatment, where Peter can visit her later. Relieved, Peter returns to MJ and tells her she is safe because Jean has been captured. However, MJ is holding the letter Peter originally wrote for her. MJ tells him that he made a huge mistake by not giving her this letter. She demands to see the person behind the letter and tells him to take off his mask. Without a word, Spider-Man removes his mask. MJ recognizes him as the neighbor from the party and asks why he didn't tell her the truth earlier. Peter explains that he tried many times but lacked the courage. MJ acknowledges that his magical spell worked all too well since she couldn't recognize him, but asks why he did it. Peter explains that after exposing his identity, he lost Aunt May, and he was terrified of losing MJ too. "Believe me," he says, "I love you so much." Deeply emotional, MJ replies, "The MJ you love is a very lucky girl. That's clear from the letter. But I don't know you, and you don't really know me. It's not possible for me to love you back. Please go home, and if you can, forgive me." Heartbroken, Peter stays silent. When MJ asks him to take her home since she doesn't know where she is, Peter gently wraps her in a hug and swings her to her doorstep. MJ invites him inside, saying Ned would be happy to see him, but Peter declines. Donning his mask, Peter returns to his room. As soon as he enters, Ned's tracker app pings. Ned is thrilled to see Spider-Man, and when asked how he got there, both Spider-Man and MJ cover with a lie. The three of them sit down and chat, and Spider-Man finds himself laughing at Ned's jokes. When Ned steps away briefly, MJ tells Spider-Man, "I probably just brought more trouble to your doorstep by bringing you here." Ned has to deal with all this madness. Spider-Man replies that he hasn't laughed like this in a very long time. MJ notes that he and Ned have always had a great friendship, urging Peter to tell Ned the truth because Ned would understand. Prompted by this, Spider-Man asks MJ about the kiss they shared earlier. MJ looks confused and says she has no memory of what happened that day. Realizing that victims of Jean's mind control retain no memories of their actions, a chilling realization hits Peter. If mind-controlled victims remember nothing, How did Mezcare instantly know about Sarah? Realizing that Mezcare lied to him about Sarah, Spider-Man immediately calls Yelena to investigate. Yelena reveals that Sarah is actually Jean Grey's sister. Like Jean, Sarah is a mutant with powerful telepathic abilities who was captured by the Damage Control Department. Spider-Man finally pieces it together. Jean wasn't attacking Damage Control out of malice. She was desperately trying to rescue her imprisoned sister, and Mezcare lied to cover it up. Determined to save Jean and Sarah, Peter prepares to leave. MJ calls out Peter and warns Spider-Man to be careful, inadvertently revealing his real name aloud. Ned overhears and is completely stunned. Meanwhile, inside a high-tech lab cart, Jean Grey is held captive. A flashback reveals how Jean and Sarah used to play together, with Sarah demonstrating how to manipulate minds. In the flashback, Jean asks if they can use their combined powers to control everyone's minds. Sarah replies that they could, but that kind of power shouldn't be abused. The sisters spot a mother playing with her child and grow sad, remembering that their own mother abandoned them because they were mutants. Despite their sorrow, they find comfort in each other. Tragically, damage control agents ambushed and knocked out Sarah during one of their outings. When Jean rushed to help, Sarah used her telepathy to alter Jean's mind to keep her safe. When Jean woke up, Sarah was gone, triggering her relentless search for her sister. The flashback ends with Director Mezcare approaching young Jean. In the flashback, Mezcare tells Jean that the powers she and her sister share can be used for both good and evil, but asks her to imagine what would happen if those powers fell into the wrong hands. Jean frantically asks where her sister is. Mezcare coldly replies that Sarah perished during an experiment. Confused, Jean spots Sarah's discarded clothes lying nearby and demands answers. Without a word, Mezcare steps away into a lab cart positioned exactly 40 feet away. Because Jean's maximum mind control range is 33 feet, the lab cart was deliberately stationed at a safe distance of 40 feet. Using the inhibitor designed by Spider-Man, Mezcare begins experimenting on Jean, trying to reverse engineer her mind control mechanics to weaponize them. During the painful experiments, Jean repeatedly screams, asking what Vimax is, the only word Sarah managed to utter before being locked away. Even Mezcare claims ignorance about what Vimax truly is. Meanwhile, as Spider-Man swings toward the island facility, Frank calls him to ask where he's going. Peter explains that Jean was only trying to save her sister Sarah, and since he inadvertently helped capture her, he has to make it right. Frank tries to talk him out of it, but Peter presses on. Inside the lab cart, the cruel experiments on Jean continue. Spider-Man reaches the island gates, but the guards have strict orders to let no one pass. A fight breaks out as Spider-Man punches his way inside. Mezcare is alerted to his breach and dispatches the Hand Ninja Squad to intercept him. Back in the lab, the relentless experimentation pushes Jean to her absolute limit. Looking up in agony through an air vent, she spots the word Vimax stenciled on the grate, making her realize that Sarah was imprisoned right here and likely murdered by them. Overwhelmed by fury and grief, Jean's psychic frequency spikes uncontrollably, mutating her brainwaves and DNA. When the lead scientist begs Mezcare to halt the experiment, Mezcare refuses. With a piercing scream, Jean declares, "I am in control of my own mind." Her scream triggers a massive psychic shockwave, instantly freezing every human and object within a 1-kilometer radius like statues. Frank, watching from his car nearby, sees the phenomenon and turns his vehicle around. Spider-Man breaches the inner facility, only to find the Hand Ninja frozen mid-motion, utterly baffled by what is happening. Jean shatters her inhibitor with her mind. Sensing Spider-Man's presence, she unfreezes the Hand Ninjas and uses them to speak to him. She demands to know why he returned, and Spider-Man replies that he didn't know her sister was imprisoned here, but he came to save her. Jean bitterly retorts that he betrayed her trust by capturing her, and now he must pay the price. A brutal battle begins between Spider-Man and the Hand Ninja Squad. Because of the ninjas' high-tech gear and coordinated assaults, Spider-Man struggles immensely. Frank calls Peter on the radio, but due to the fierce combat, Peter can barely hear him over the din. Frank warns him that a 1-kilometer zone has been entirely locked down in a psychic freeze, trapping MJ and Ned inside as statues. Overwhelmed by the ninjas' special weapons, Spider-Man takes heavy damage. Seizing the opportunity, Jean drags Mezcare forward and taunts Peter. "Look at the people you work for. Look at the weapons they build to slaughter our kind. You were just a pawn." Beaten and battered, Spider-Man's mask is torn off. Jean looks at him and says, "Because of our powers, I lost my sister. You lost your aunt. We've both lost everything." Staring at Jean, Peter realizes the painful truth. His powers did cause Aunt May's death, and they did push MJ and Ned away from him. Just then, his gamma powers flare up uncontrollably. Startled, Jean asks, "Who are you really, Spider-Man or Peter Parker?" When the hand ninjas charge at him again, Spider-Man effortlessly brushes them aside. He looks at Jean and declares, "I'm both." Unleashing a jaw-dropping display of raw power, he fires a massive wave of web shooters and gamma webbing that instantly wraps up the entire hand squad in seconds. Breaking through the remaining doors, Spider-Man confronts Jean directly. Meanwhile, Frank sneaks into a building across the courtyard, setting up a sniper rifle with a clear shot at Jean. Inside the room, Spider-Man finds Jean holding Ms. Care at the brink of death. He pleads with her, "Let her go. You're not a killer." Enraged, Jean yells, "She murdered my sister." Peter urges her not to sink to their level, asking why she wants to take innocent lives. Furious, Jean turns her attention to Peter and says, "I couldn't control your mind before, but this time, I have the power to break you." Peter challenges her, "Then try to control my mind." As Jean delves into Peter's psyche, a vivid vision manifests. Aunt May appears before Peter, telling him, "The powers you've been given might bring you trouble in the days ahead, but you must be ready for it. Remember, everyone loves you, and they love you because of who you are, not despite your powers." Jean experiences this memory firsthand because her soul mirrors Peter's. Feeling his pain, she projects herself into his perspective. Peter gently tells her, "I know how much it hurts to lose Sarah. It's agonizing." Jean whispers back, "Your aunt is dead too, isn't she?" Peter answers, "Yes, she is. For a long time, it felt like my entire world stopped, just like it did when you lost your sister. We're the same, you and I, but we can't let ourselves stay frozen. We have to keep moving forward." Jean breaks down, whispering, "I have no one left." Peter looks her in the eye and promises, "You have me." Suddenly, the deafening crack of Frank's sniper rifle echoes through the room. The bullet is aimed straight at Jean's head. Without hesitation, Spider-Man leaps in front of Jean and takes the bullet for her. The shock of the gunshot breaks Jean's concentration, snapping the psychic shockwave and instantly restoring normalcy across the entire 1-kilometer radius. Horrified, Jean breaks down in tears, blaming herself for Spider-Man taking a bullet meant for her. Bleeding heavily, Spider-Man urges Jean to run before backup arrives. Though hesitant, Jean finally flees. Frank rushes in, picks up the wounded hero, and speeds him to a hospital. Across the city, citizens of New York gather to pray for Spider-Man's recovery. The next day, utilizing her recovered telepathic healing abilities from afar, Jean remotely heals Peter's injuries. When Peter wakes up in his hospital bed, he finds only Frank sitting beside him. Anxious, Peter asks where Jean is and if she escaped safely. Frank confirms that she got away, adding that some weird mystic mumbo-jumbo seemed to help heal his wounds overnight. Frank expresses uncharacteristic emotion over Peter nearly dying. Spotting Frank's uncharacteristic sentimentality, Peter starts teasing him. Suddenly, a loud uproar rises from outside the window. Frank remarks, "Your fans have been waiting since yesterday for you to wake up." Peter looks out the window to see a massive crowd gathered in the street cheering his name. Grinning, Frank hatches a plan. He grabs Spider-Man's mask, puts it on, and stands by the window to wave to the ecstatic crowd. Watching the pure joy on the faces of the people he protects, Peter feels that warmth deep in his heart, smiling alongside them. Though MJ insists she doesn't remember loving Peter, she feels an immense wave of relief upon hearing he has survived. Following the incident, Jean Grey quietly leaves New York City to start anew. Once fully recovered, Peter calls Detective Diolope to check in. Diolope reports that Director Ms. Care has mysteriously vanished, but assures Peter they are handling the search and tells him to focus on resting. Just as they speak, a police scanner alert reports an active bank robbery in progress. Peter prepares to rush out, but Diolope tells him to stand down and lets the regular police handle it. Later, Peter visits Aunt May's grave to leave flowers, whispering how much he misses her. Afterward, he stops by a local diner and spots Ned. Walking up to Ned, Peter introduces himself using his real name. He extends his hand for their signature complicated handshake. Recognizing the exact rhythm and movement of the handshake, and remembering that MJ accidentally called Spider-Man Peter, everything clicks in Ned's head. Ned smiles warmly, fully recognizing his best friend once again. And with that touching reunion, the story of Spider-Man Brand New Day comes to a close. In the post-credits scene, Ned's Spidey Tracker app suddenly picks up a massive signature indicating the arrival of another Spider-Man. heavily implying an alternate universe variant. This massive crossover event sets the stage directly for Avengers Doomsday. Ultimately, Brand New Day brilliantly captures the true essence of the Spider-Man brand. Even with fewer action set pieces, it delivers a deeply emotional angle that reminds us why we loved Spider-Man so much in the first place, while empowering him with powerful new abilities so he no longer has to rely on anyone else.